The church was empty except for one man kneeling at the altar rail. Colin's shoulders shook as sobs tore from his chest. His calloused hands gripped the rough wood so hard his knuckles had gone white. Snow fell soft against the windows. The lamp above flickered, barely holding back the dark. He hadn't meant to come here, but the cabin had grown too small for his despair. Baby Sarah's weak cries. James and Thomas huddled by a dying fire with nothing in their bellies. 3 days of fever burning his daughter alive while he watched helpless. "God," he whispered. Then louder. "God, I can't do this alone anymore." The words broke something in him. Everything spilled out. His wife Mary dead 18 months now. The harvest that failed. The medicine he couldn't afford. His 2 boys going hungry because their father couldn't provide. Sarah slipping away while he stood by useless. "I've tried." His voice cracked. "I've tried so hard. But I'm not enough. I'm failing them." He pressed his forehead to the rail. The wood was cold and unforgiving. "They need food. Sarah needs medicine. I've got nothing left to give." He drew a ragged breath. "Help me. Please, God. Help me. I'm not strong enough." The lamp flickered again. Colin didn't notice. He wept openly now. No pride left. No dignity. Just a father at the end of everything he had. "I can't watch her die. I can't lose another one." His fingers ached from gripping the rail. "If you're there, if you're listening, send someone. Send anyone. I can't do this alone." The silence of the church pressed down. No answer came from heaven. No voice spoke comfort. Colin stayed on his knees until the cold seeped through his worn trousers, until his tears were spent and only emptiness remained. He stood slowly. His legs trembled. The lamp cast long shadows across the empty pews. Behind him, near the door. Soft footsteps sounded on the wooden floor. But Colin heard nothing over his own broken breathing. He stumbled toward the exit, shoulders bent under the weight of unanswered prayer. The door stood open. Snow drifted in from the gathering dark. Colin stepped out into Christmas Eve. The wind bit through his thin coat. He didn't feel it. He walked toward home with nothing left but the task of watching his daughter slip away. Behind him in the church, someone remained in the shadows. She'd heard every word, every desperate plea, every broken prayer. Miriam stood motionless until Colin disappeared into the snow. Then she moved to where he'd knelt. She touched the altar rail where his hands had gripped, still warm from his desperate hold. Her father was in the back room preparing for evening service. She had time. She hurried to the cabinet where they kept supplies for families in need. Bread, dried meat, preserves. Her hands moved quickly, filling a basket. From her father's study she took the leather medical bag. Willow bark, herbs, clean cloths. Her heart beat fast. She hadn't felt this alive in 2 years. "I heard you," she whispered to the empty church. To Colin, though he was long gone. To God. Maybe. "I heard you say you can't do this alone." She pulled her cloak tight and lifted the heavy basket. The medical bag hung from her other arm. "Neither can I." Colin pushed through the door of his cabin. Cold air came with him. The fire had burned down to embers. James looked up from where he sat with his arm around Thomas. Both boys had that hollow-eyed look children get when hunger becomes normal. They didn't ask about food anymore. That somehow hurt worse. "Pa..." James's voice was small. "Is Sarah still sick?" Colin couldn't answer. He moved to the back room where his daughter lay in the rough wooden cradle he'd built for Mary's first baby. Sarah's face was flushed red with fever. Her breathing came shallow and fast. He touched her forehead. Burning. "I'm sorry, little one," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." A knock sounded at the door. Hard and insistent. Colin frowned. No one came calling on Christmas Eve. He walked back through the main room and opened the door. Miriam stood in the snow. The minister's daughter, solemn and quiet as always. Her arms were full a basket, a leather bag. Her dark eyes met his with an intensity that made him step back. "I heard your prayer," she said. No greeting, no preamble. "I'm here to help." Colin's throat tightened. Shame flooded through him hot and bitter. She'd been in the church. She'd heard him weeping, heard him beg, heard everything. "Miss Miriam, he couldn't find words. "I can't accept charity. I'll manage somehow." "Will you?" Her voice was quiet but firm. "Your daughter is dying. Your sons are starving. Will you manage that?" The truth hit like a fist. Colin looked away. "I appreciate the thought, but it wouldn't be proper. You shouldn't be here." Miriam stepped past him into the cabin. Her eyes swept the room, the dying fire, the gaunt boys, the empty shelves. She heard Sarah's weak cry from the back room. She set the basket on the table. The medical bag followed. "Proper can wait." She turned to face him. "Your daughter needs medicine now, not tomorrow. Your sons need to eat. We can argue about pride later." Colin's hands clenched at his sides. His face burned. But James and Thomas were staring at the basket with desperate hunger, and Sarah's cries were getting weaker. "Why?" The word came out rough. "Why would you help us?" Something flickered in Miriam's eyes. Pain, maybe, or memory. "Because someone should have helped me once," she said softly. "Because I know what it's like to pray with no answer." She moved toward the back room without waiting for permission. Colin followed, helpless. Miriam set the medical bag on the floor beside Sarah's cradle. She knelt and placed her hand on the baby's forehead. Her expression tightened. "High fever. How long?" 3 days. "Any medicine?" "Ran out yesterday. No money for more." Miriam nodded once. She opened the bag with practiced hands, pulled out packets of herbs, clean cloths, a small vial. "I'll need boiling water, lots of it." She looked up at Colin. "And get that fire built up." "This room is too cold for a sick baby?" Colin stood frozen, watching this quiet woman take command of his crisis, feeling useless and grateful and ashamed all at once. "Go," Miriam said, not unkindly. "I need you to help, not hover." He went. What else could he do in the main room? James and Thomas were still staring at the basket. Colin's heart broke a little more. "You boys can eat," he said quietly. Miss Miriam brought food. They descended on the basket like starving wolves. Colin turned away, built up the fire until flames roared in the hearth, set water to boil in the battered pot. From the back room came Sarah's cries, then Miriam's voice, low and soothing, singing something soft. The crying eased. Colin stood by the fire listening. For the first time in 3 days, his daughter wasn't screaming. The silence felt like a miracle. He looked at his sons. James had torn bread in half and given the bigger piece to Thomas. They ate slowly now, savoring every bite, in the back room. Miriam worked over his daughter. This woman who'd lost her own baby, her own husband, who had every reason to hide from pain. And she'd come anyway. An hour passed, then 2. Colin kept the fire fed and water boiling. He brought what Miriam asked for and tried to stay out of her way. James and Thomas fell asleep by the hearth, their bellies full for the first time in days. Colin covered them with a thin blanket. Near midnight, Miriam emerged from the back room. Her sleeves were rolled up. Exhaustion showed in the lines around her eyes. "She's resting," Miriam said. "The fever's still high, but I've got her on willow bark tea. It'll help. You should go home." Colin's voice was rough. "Your father will worry, and it's not people will talk if you stay." Miriam's jaw set. "Let them talk." "Miss Miriam, I lost a baby once." The words came sudden and fierce. Miriam's hands clenched at her sides. "A son." He lived 3 hours. I held him while he died. Colin went still. Everyone knew the minister's daughter had been widowed young. But he hadn't known about the baby. I couldn't save him. Miriam's voice shook. I tried everything. My mother tried, the doctor tried, but he just stopped breathing. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. My husband, David, he never recovered. Got fever a month later. I think his heart just gave out from grief. She looked at Colin with naked pain. I've spent 2 years wishing I died with them. 2 years going through motions. Empty. Colin's throat closed. He knew that emptiness. Had lived in it since Mary died. Then I heard you pray tonight. Miriam continued. Heard you say the same words I've said 100 times. I can't do this alone. She drew a shaking breath. And I realized maybe God didn't send me to save you. Maybe he sent you to save me. She moved to the table and gripped the edge. Her knuckles went white. Your daughter is still alive. I can still help her. I can still do something that matters. She turned to face him fully. Let me stay. Let me do this. Please. Colin saw his own brokenness reflected in her eyes. 2 people shattered by loss. 2 people barely surviving. I need this, Miriam whispered. I need to remember that life is worth fighting for. Colin's resistance crumbled. Not because he stopped being ashamed, but because he recognized the truth when he heard it. She needed to save Sarah almost as much as he did. Stay, he said quietly. Please stay. Miriam's shoulders sagged with relief. She nodded once. I'll need to check on her through the night, she said. The fever could spike again. Someone needs to watch her constantly. I'll watch with you. You need rest. So do you. Colin met her eyes. We'll both watch. Something passed between them. Understanding. Maybe. The recognition that broken wasn't the same as useless. That needing someone didn't make you weak. Miriam returned to the back room. Colin followed. They settled into chairs on opposite sides of Sarah's cradle. The baby slept fitfully. Her breathing was still too fast. Her skin still too hot. But she was alive. The candle on the small table cast flickering shadows. Outside. Snow continued to fall. The world narrowed to this room. This vigil. This shared determination to hold life in place. Thank you, Colin said into the quiet. For coming. For staying. Miriam didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on Sarah. Thank you, she replied. For letting me. The night stretched ahead, long and uncertain and full of danger. But for the first time in 18 months, Colin wasn't keeping watch alone. For the first time in 2 years, Miriam had a reason to stay awake. They sat together in the candlelight. 2 broken people beginning the work of saving a life. And maybe, in some small way, beginning to save each other. Miriam worked through the evening with quiet efficiency. She mixed willow bark tea and coaxed it between Sarah's lips, applied cool cloths to the baby's burning skin, changed the poultice on her chest every hour. Colin kept the water boiling and the fire fed. He watched her hands move with practiced skill. Watched the way she touched his daughter, gentle but sure. You've done this before, he said. Not quite a question. My mother was a midwife, taught me remedies. Miriam didn't look up from her work. I helped her with sick children in town. Before. She stopped. Before her world fell apart, Colin understood. James woke first, around 9. He sat up by the fire and rubbed his eyes, saw Miriam moving between the main room and Sarah's room, watched her with cautious hope. Is Sarah better? Pa, Miss Miriam's helping her. Colin rested his hand on his son's shoulder. She brought medicine. Thomas woke next. He stumbled to his feet and went straight to Miriam, tugged on her skirt like he'd known her forever. Are you an angel? His voice was small and wondering. Did God send you? Miriam knelt to his level, touched his cheek with gentle fingers. No, sweetheart, just a friend. The word seemed to catch in her throat. Just someone who wants to help. Thomas threw his arms around her neck. Miriam froze. Then slowly, carefully, she hugged him back. Her eyes closed. Something in her face shifted, softened. Colin looked away. The moment felt too private. James approached more carefully. Did you know our mama? I knew of her. Miriam's voice was steady now. Your pa talks about her in town sometimes. She must have been very special. She was. James's chin trembled. She made the best cornbread, and she sang to us at night. What did she sing? Amazing Grace. Pa doesn't sing anymore. Miriam glanced at Colin. He busied himself with the fire. Maybe he will again someday, she said softly. Sometimes it takes a while to find your voice after losing someone. James nodded like he understood. Maybe he did. Children saw more than adults thought. The hours wore on. Miriam showed Colin how to make the tea, how to check Sarah's temperature, how to position her for easier breathing. He learned quickly, grateful to have something useful to do. Near midnight, Miriam convinced him to rest. Just for an hour. You'll be no good to anyone if you collapse. Colin stretched out on the bench near the fire. He didn't think he'd sleep, but exhaustion took him under. He woke to Miriam humming. The same lullaby she'd sung to Sarah earlier, low and sweet and achingly sad. He lay still, listening, watching her silhouette in the dim lamplight. She held Sarah against her shoulder and swayed slightly. The baby's breathing had eased. Not much, but enough to notice. For the first time in days, something like hope stirred in Colin's chest. He sat up. Miriam turned at the sound. She's doing better, Miriam said. Fever's down a little. Not much, but it's something. Colin moved to her side, looked down at his daughter. Sarah's face was still flushed, but her breathing came easier. Her eyes opened briefly, clouded with fever, but aware. Thank you, he whispered. Miriam shook her head. Don't thank me yet. We're not out of danger. Fevers can turn. But her voice held hope too. Fragile and tentative, but real. They worked together through the rest of the night, changing shifts when one grew too tired, checking Sarah constantly. The boys slept peaceful by the fire. As gray dawn lightened the windows, Colin realized something. The cabin felt different, warmer somehow, despite the winter cold, alive. When it had felt like a tomb for so long, Miriam stood by the window, looking out at the snow. Her hair had come loose from its pins. Her dress was rumpled. She looked exhausted and beautiful and brave. You should rest now, Colin said. I can watch her. So should you. I've been resting. Your turn. Miriam hesitated, then nodded. She moved to the bench and sat. Within minutes, sleep took her. Colin kept vigil alone, but he didn't feel alone, not anymore. Around 2 a.m. of the second night, Colin woke with his heart pounding. Something was wrong. Sarah's breathing had changed, too shallow, too fast. Her skin burned hotter than before. Miriam. His voice came sharp. Miriam, wake up. She was on her feet instantly. One look at Sarah and her face went tight with fear. The fever's spiking. She grabbed the medical bag. Get me cold water, lots of it. Colin ran, grabbed the bucket, rushed outside to where snow had piled against the cabin wall, scooped handfuls into the bucket and brought it in. Miriam was already stripping away Sarah's blankets. She dipped cloths into the snow water and laid them on the baby's forehead, chest, arms. Sarah whimpered but didn't have strength to cry. Come on, little one. Miriam's voice shook. Stay with us. Just stay with us. Colin knelt beside her. Together they worked, changing cloths, checking breathing, trying every remedy Miriam knew. The baby's color was wrong, too pale beneath the flush. An hour passed, then 2. Sarah's breathing grew more labored. Her little chest heaved with each breath. She's not responding. Miriam's hands trembled as she mixed another dose of willow bark. Nothing's working. Colin felt the bottom drop out of his world. Not again. Please God. Not again. There has to be something. His voice broke. Please, there has to be. I don't know what else to do. Tears spilled down Miriam's cheeks. I've tried everything my mother taught me. I've tried everything I know. She pressed her hands over her face. Her shoulders shook. Colin reached for her without thinking, pulled her against him. She turned into his shoulder and sobbed. I can't lose her, he whispered into Miriam's hair. I can't lose another one. I can't. I know. Miriam's voice was muffled against his chest. I know. They held each other in the darkness. 2 people drowning together, Sarah's labored breathing the only sound. Then Miriam pulled back, wiped her face roughly. Wait, there's my mother had one more remedy, for desperate cases. She looked at Colin with frightened hope. It's risky. Very risky. But it might work. And what is it? A mixture of yarrow and elderberry. Concentrated. It can break severe fevers. But if I get the dose wrong, she couldn't finish. Colin understood. Too much could kill as surely as too little. Do it, he said. We're losing her anyway. Miriam's hands shook as she measured herbs, mixed them with boiling water. Let it steep while she prayed under her breath. Colin prayed too, silent and desperate. Help me hold her, Miriam said. Together they lifted Sarah. Miriam brought the cup to the baby's lips. Got her to swallow once, twice, 3 times. Sarah coughed and sputtered. But the medicine went down. They laid her back in the cradle. Miriam pulled a blanket over her. Now they could only wait. Colin sank into the chair, dropped his head into his hands. I prayed for help. He said to no one, to everyone. I begged God, and he sent you. But what if it's not enough? What if... Don't. Miriam's voice was fierce. Don't give up on her yet. How can you still have faith after everything you've lost? Miriam was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. I don't have faith in God right now. I have faith in this baby. I have faith in whatever spark keeps fighting inside her. She looked at Colin across the cradle. Sometimes that has to be enough. Colin reached out, found her hand in the darkness. She gripped his fingers tight. They sat together, hands joined, watching Sarah breathe, waiting for the medicine to work or fail. An hour crawled by, then another. Colin's hope died a little more with each labored breath. Then Miriam sat forward. Look. Her color. The flush was fading, just slightly, but enough to see. Sarah's breathing came easier. The desperate heaving of her chest began to ease. It's working! Miriam's voice cracked. Colin, it's working. He leaned over the cradle, touched Sarah's forehead with trembling fingers. Still hot, but not burning, not killing. Sarah's eyes opened, really opened. For the first time in days, they focused on Miriam's face. The baby made a small sound, not a cry, almost like recognition. Miriam broke. Tears came hard and fast. She covered her mouth with both hands but couldn't stop the sobs. Colin wrapped his arms around her. This time he was the one offering comfort. She turned into him and wept against his chest. Relief and grief and joy all tangled together. She's going to live, Colin whispered. His own tears fell into Miriam's hair. Because of you. She's going to live. They held each other while Sarah's breathing steadied, while the first hints of dawn touched the windows, while life returned to the small cabin that had held so much death. When Miriam finally pulled back, she looked at Colin with red-rimmed eyes. We did this together, she said, both of us. Colin nodded, couldn't speak. The door to the main room opened. James peeked through, saw his father and Miss Miriam sitting close, saw the tears on both their faces. Is Sarah? His voice was small with terror. She's better. Colin's voice broke on the words. She's going to be all right. James ran to the cradle, stared down at his baby sister. Thomas appeared behind him, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Sarah looked back at her brothers, made another soft sound, almost peaceful. Thomas climbed into Miriam's lap. James pressed against Colin's side. The four of them sat together watching Sarah sleep, watching life return. Outside, dawn broke full and clear. Christmas morning, the snow had stopped falling. Inside, two broken people had saved a life, and maybe, in the saving, begun to heal each other. Christmas morning should have brought celebration. Instead, it brought new terror. Sarah woke screaming. The fever that had broken just hours before came roaring back worse than ever. Her whole body shook with it. No. Miriam's face went white. No, no, no. She grabbed for the medical bag. Her hands fumbled with the remedies. Colin saw her panic and felt his own rise to meet it. What's happening? You said she was through the worst. I thought she was... Miriam's voice shook. But sometimes fevers do this. Come back stronger. I've seen it before. She couldn't finish. Colin knew what she wasn't saying. She'd seen children die this way. James and Thomas woke to their sister's screams. Thomas started crying. James wrapped his arms around his little brother, face white with fear. It's Christmas. Thomas sobbed. Why is Sarah still sick on Christmas? Colin had no answer. He watched Miriam work with desperate speed, watched her try remedy after remedy. But Sarah's fever kept climbing. The baby's cries grew weaker, more pitiful. We're almost out of medicine. Miriam's hands shook. I don't have enough for another full treatment. I'll ride to town. Find the doctor. He left yesterday for his daughter's place. Won't be back until next week. Miriam pressed her hands over her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I could save her. A knock sounded at the door. Colin opened it to find Mrs. Patterson from the neighboring farm. She held a basket of Christmas treats. Merry Christmas. Colin, I brought... She stopped, saw Miriam inside. Her eyes widened. Oh, I didn't realize you had company. The word hung in the air. Company. Not help. Not a woman saving his daughter's life. Just company. Company that had spent the night. Mrs. Patterson's gaze swept from Miriam's rumpled dress to Colin's exhausted face. Her expression shifted to something knowing, something judgmental. I'll just leave these on the porch, she said stiffly. Good day. She was gone before Colin could explain, could tell her Miriam had been fighting for Sarah's life. That nothing improper had happened. He closed the door, turned to find Miriam watching him with stricken eyes. You should go, Colin said. The words tasted like poison. People are going to talk. Your reputation. I don't care about my reputation. But her voice wavered. You should. You have to live in this town. Your father's the minister. People will... let them. Miriam's chin lifted. This baby needs me. For what to watch her die anyway? The words came harsh and bitter. Hopelessness made him cruel. Maybe you should go. Save yourself the pain of... Sarah's screams cut him off. Miriam flinched like she'd been slapped. Is that what you want? Her voice went cold. You want me to leave to let you handle this alone like you were doing so well before? Colin's anger drained away, left only shame and fear. No! The word came out broken. God help me. No, I need you here. Sarah needs you. He couldn't finish. Miriam's expression softened. She moved to him, put her hand on his arm. Then I'm staying. Unless you're ordering me to go? No. I'm asking you to stay. Then it's settled. She turned back to Sarah. We'll figure out the rest later. Right now, this is all that matters. But Colin saw the worry in her eyes, saw her counting the remaining medicine, trying to ration what little was left. James brought Thomas to sit by the fire. The boys huddled together, trying to be brave, trying not to cry while their baby sister screamed. Miriam looked at the nearly empty medical bag, looked at Sarah writhing in the cradle, her face set with grim determination. There's one more thing I can try. Her voice was barely above a whisper. My mother taught it to me. But she said to only use it in desperate cases. It's dangerous. How dangerous? It could save her. Or it could... Miriam's voice broke. If I get it wrong, even a little, it could make things worse. Colin looked at his daughter. Looked at the woman who'd been fighting for Sarah's life for 2 days without rest. Who'd risked her reputation, her peace, everything to help them. You won't get it wrong, he said quietly. I trust you. Miriam's eyes filled with tears. Even if I fail, even then. Colin took her hand. Whatever happens, we face it together. I'm not letting you carry this alone. Miriam nodded once, squared her shoulders, went to prepare the dangerous remedy. Colin stayed by Sarah's cradle, prayed silent and desperate, not for a miracle this time, just for strength. For Miriam's hands to be steady, for one more chance to save his daughter. Outside, snow began falling again, heavier this time, blanketing the world in cold white silence. Inside, Miriam worked with shaking hands, measuring precise amounts of herbs Colin didn't recognize, mixing them with prayer under her breath. This has to work, she whispered. Please, please let this work. She brought the mixture to Sarah. Colin helped hold the baby still. Together they got the medicine down. Now they could only wait and pray, and hope that desperation had led them to salvation instead of greater loss. The day dragged into evening. Sarah's fever raged. The dangerous medicine seemed to do nothing. Miriam tried everything. Cool cloths, warm compresses, prayers whispered over the baby's struggling body. Nothing helped. By sunset, Sarah's breathing had grown so shallow Colin could barely see her chest move. The boys ate in silence. James kept glancing toward the back room with terrified eyes. Thomas refused to leave Colin's side. Is Sarah going to die like Mama? Thomas's voice was small. Colin couldn't answer. The truth sat like a stone in his throat. As darkness fell, Miriam emerged from the back room. Her face was gray with exhaustion and despair. I need a minute, she said. I can't. She stumbled to the door and went outside. Colin followed her into the snow. Miriam stood in the drifts, arms wrapped around herself. She was shaking, not from cold. I'm losing her. The words tore out of her. Just like I lost my son. I'm watching another baby die and I can't stop it. You've done everything, it's not enough. She spun to face him. Tears froze on her cheeks. Nothing I do is enough. I thought maybe this time, maybe this once I could save a life instead of watching it slip away. But I can't. I'm failing her just like I failed my own baby. Colin pulled her against him. She fought for a moment, then collapsed into his arms, sobbed against his chest like her heart was breaking. Maybe it was. This is my fault, Colin said into her hair. I prayed for help. God sent you. But it's not fair to you. You shouldn't have to carry this. I chose this. Miriam's voice was muffled. I heard your prayer and I chose to come because I thought... Her voice cracked. I thought maybe I could make a difference. Maybe broken people like us could still do something good. You have made a difference. You've fought for her. You've given her every chance. It's not enough. They stood together in the falling snow. Two people at the end of hope. Two people with nothing left but each other. Why does God let this happen? Colin whispered. Why answer a prayer just to make us watch her die anyway? I don't know. Miriam pulled back. Looked at him with red, swollen eyes. I've asked that question for 2 years. I still don't have an answer. A sound came from the cabin. Not Sarah's cries. Silence. Terrible silence. Colin and Miriam ran. Burst through the door. Colin reached the back room first. Sarah lay still in her cradle. Too still. He couldn't see her breathing. No! The word ripped from him. No! Please! Miriam pushed past him, fell to her knees beside the cradle. Put her hand on Sarah's chest. Her face went rigid. Then, wait. Miriam's voice was barely a whisper. Wait. Her color. Colin looked. The fever flush was fading. Not the gray of death, the healthy pale of a child sleeping. Miriam leaned close, listened. Her eyes went wide. She's breathing. Her breathing's normal. Miriam's hands shook as she checked Sarah's pulse, her temperature. The fever's breaking. Really breaking this time? It's oh God, it's working. Sarah stirred, made a small sound. Not a cry of pain. A soft, sleepy baby noise. Her eyes opened, clear for the first time in 5 days. She looked at Miriam, at Colin. Her mouth curved in something almost like a smile. Colin couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't believe what he was seeing. Miriam lifted Sarah from the cradle, held her close, and wept. The baby nestled against her shoulder, content, peaceful. She's going to live. Miriam's voice broke on every word. She's through the worst. She's going to live. Colin dropped to his knees beside them, put his arms around Miriam and Sarah both. His tears came hard and fast, relief and joy and overwhelming gratitude. The door burst open. James and Thomas ran in, saw their father crying, saw Miss Miriam holding Sarah, saw their baby sister awake and aware. Is she... James couldn't finish. She's better. Colin's voice was raw. She's going to be all right. Thomas climbed into Miriam's lap. James pressed against Colin's side. The four of them huddled together around Sarah. The baby looked at each face in turn, made soft sounds, reached tiny fingers toward Miriam's face. Miriam caught the small hand, kissed it, broke into fresh tears. I didn't fail, she whispered. This time I didn't fail. Colin looked at her, at this woman who'd come when he'd had nothing left, who'd fought for his daughter like she was her own, who'd risked everything to answer a desperate prayer. You saved her, he said. You saved us all. Miriam shook her head. We saved her together. They sat on the floor in the small back room, 2 broken people and 3 children who'd lost too much. Found family. Forged in the crucible of nearly losing everything. Outside. The snow stopped falling. The night grew clear and cold. Stars emerged bright against the darkness. Inside. The fire burned warm. Sarah slept peaceful in Miriam's arms. The boys dozed against their father's side. Dawn would come soon. The day after Christmas. The first day of new life. For now. They held each other in the lamplight, grateful, exhausted, alive. Morning came quiet and still. Sarah woke without fever. Her eyes were clear, her breathing easy. She nursed from the goat milk Miriam warmed, taking it down without struggle. The boys woke to find their sister improved. Thomas laughed for the first time in days. James's shoulders finally relaxed from their tight, fearful hunch. Miriam moved through the cabin, checking Sarah constantly, feeling her forehead, listening to her breathing, watching for any sign the fever might return. But the crisis had passed. Sarah was weak, but healing. Colin made coffee. His hands shook as he poured. Exhaustion and relief made him clumsy. "Sit," Miriam said gently. "Rest. We're through the worst now." Colin sat, realized he couldn't remember the last time he'd truly rested. The last time he'd felt anything but fear and desperation. Silence fell between them. Comfortable now, earned through shared struggle. Finally, Colin spoke. "Why did you really come? You could have sent help. Sent your father. Sent anyone." He met her eyes. "Why did you come yourself?" Miriam was quiet for a long moment. She held Sarah against her shoulder, rocking slightly. "When I lost my baby when David died, I thought God had abandoned me." Her voice was soft but steady. "I stopped living. I was just existing, going through motions, empty inside." She looked at Colin. "Vulnerable and brave. Then I heard you pray. Heard you say the same words I've said 100 times. I can't do this alone." Her eyes filled. "And I realized maybe God didn't send me to save you. Maybe he sent you to save me." Colin's throat tightened. He waited for her to continue. "I needed to remember that life is worth fighting for, even when it hurts." Miriam's tears spilled over. "Especially when it hurts. I needed to remember that broken people can still do something beautiful. That loss doesn't have to be the end of everything." She kissed Sarah's forehead. The baby made a soft sound of contentment. "Your prayer woke me up," Miriam whispered. "Made me want to live again, want to feel again, even if feeling meant risking more pain." Colin moved to kneel beside her chair, took her hand. "My prayer was help me," he said quietly. But the real answer wasn't just getting help. It was learning that broken isn't the same as useless. That needing someone doesn't make you weak. He squeezed her fingers. She squeezed back. "You're the answer to my prayer, Miriam. But I think maybe I'm part of yours too." Fresh tears slid down her cheeks, but she smiled through them. They sat together in the morning light. Sarah dozed between them. James and Thomas played quietly by the fire, building something with sticks and string. After a while, Colin spoke again. His voice was careful, hopeful and terrified at once. "Will you stay? Not just today, but stay?" Miriam looked at him, at the boys, at Sarah sleeping peaceful in her arms. "The boys need you." Colin continued. His voice dropped. "Sarah needs you. I need you." The words hung between them, weighted with everything unsaid. Everything too new and fragile to name. Miriam thought of her empty room at her father's house, her empty days, her half-lived life. She thought of Thomas's arms around her neck, James reading aloud while she worked, Sarah's tiny hand gripping her finger, Colin's quiet strength, the way he looked at her like she was brave instead of broken. "Yes," she said simply. "I'll stay." Colin's breath caught. Relief and joy flooded his face. He pressed his forehead to their joined hands. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you." Miriam touched his hair with her free hand. "Thank you for letting me—" The fire crackled. Sarah stirred and settled. Outside, the world lay quiet under fresh snow. Inside, two broken people had found each other, had found hope in the darkest place. had learned that sometimes God's answers come not from heaven, but from the person beside you, equally wounded, equally willing to stay. We'll figure out the details. Colin said, what people say, how to make it work, all of that. Later, Miriam agreed. Right now, this is enough. James looked up from his play. Miss Miriam, are you going to live with us now? Miriam smiled. First real smile Colin had seen from her. It transformed her whole face. Yes, sweetheart, if that's all right with you. Thomas cheered. James grinned wide. Sarah made a happy sound in her sleep. Colin stood and pulled Miriam to her feet, careful of the baby between them. For a moment they just looked at each other. Two people who'd lost everything. Two people who'd found something precious in shared pain, something worth fighting for, worth staying for. Welcome home, Colin said softly. Miriam's smile widened. Welcome home. New Year's morning dawned clear and bright. Colin woke to sounds he'd forgotten, children laughing, someone humming in the kitchen, the ordinary music of family life. A week had passed since that desperate Christmas Eve. Sarah grew stronger each day. The fever was gone. Color returned to her cheeks. She smiled at Miriam now, reached for her with tiny hands. The cabin had changed, subtle things, but Colin noticed cleaner corners, mended curtains, Miriam's few belongings mixed with theirs, a woman's touch making house into home. James sat at the table reading aloud from the Bible Miriam had brought. He stumbled over words, but she patiently helped him sound them out. Thomas sat beside her, leaning against her arm like he belonged there. Colin stood in the doorway watching, his heart full of something he'd thought he'd never feel again. Not quite joy yet, too new, too fragile, but peace. Definitely peace. A knock sounded. Colin opened the door to find Miriam's father standing in the snow. The minister carried a basket of supplies. Colin. The older man's face was kind. May I come in? Of course, sir. The minister entered. His eyes found Miriam immediately. She stood, suddenly nervous, but her father smiled. You look well, daughter. Better than I've seen you in 2 years. Papa. Miriam's voice caught. I can explain. No need. He set down the basket. I know you've been tending a sick child, that Colin's family needed help. His gaze moved to Sarah, sleeping in her cradle. I'm glad to see the little one recovering. He turned back to Colin. The congregation's been asking questions. About Miriam staying here? Colin's jaw tightened. Sir, nothing improper has happened. Your daughter saved Sarah's life. She's been sleeping by the fire. The minister raised a hand. I believe you. And I've told them as much. His voice firmed. I've explained that my daughter is serving a family in need, doing the Lord's work. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me. Relief flooded through Colin. Miriam's eyes filled with grateful tears. Thank you. Papa. Thank you for finding yourself again. The minister touched her cheek. I've missed seeing you truly alive. He blessed them and left. Colin closed the door and turned to find Miriam smiling. Your father's a good man. He is. She moved to the window. I was afraid he'd be angry. Ask me to come home. Would you have gone? Miriam looked at him, at the boys, at Sarah. No, she said softly. This is home now. Evening fell. Colin stepped outside briefly. The sky was clear, stars brilliant in the cold air. He looked up and felt something shift in his chest. Thank you, he whispered. Not desperate anymore, not begging, just grateful. Simple and sincere. Thank you. The prayer felt different this time, complete. answered not with miracles, but with the most profound gift, another broken soul willing to stay, willing to fight, willing to love again despite the cost. He went back inside. Miriam stood by the fire, Sarah in her arms. The lamplight caught in her dark hair, made her face glow warm and beautiful. She looked up when he entered, smiled. The smile reached her eyes now, brought life to features that had been frozen in grief. "Boys are asleep," she said quietly. "Sarah just finished eating. I think she's finally putting on weight." Colin moved to her side, looked down at his daughter. Sarah gazed back with clear, aware eyes. She was going to make it. They all were. "Miriam." He said her name carefully, testing weight he'd never dared before. "I know it's too soon to talk about what this is, what we're becoming, too soon to name it." She agreed. Her voice was gentle. "But not too soon to know it's real." "No, not too soon for that." They stood together in the lamplight, not touching, but close, comfortable in shared space. Two people who'd learned that healing didn't erase scars, but scars didn't have to mean the end. Outside, the first signs of thaw appeared. Icicles dripped. Snow softened at the edges. Winter always ended eventually. Spring always came. Thomas murmured in his sleep by the fire. James's breathing was deep and steady. Sarah's eyes drifted closed in Miriam's arms. The lamp burned steady and bright, not flickering anymore, just warm. Constant light pushing back the dark. Colin remembered kneeling in that cold church, remembered begging for help with nothing left but desperate hope. He'd expected angels maybe, or miracles, or nothing at all. Instead, God had sent him someone broken like himself, someone who understood loss, someone brave enough to answer a prayer despite her own pain. In the distance, the church bell rang, clear notes carrying across the snowy valley, calling people to evening service, reminding them that faith meant showing up even when hope felt impossible. Miriam shifted Sarah to her shoulder. The baby settled with a soft sound. "I should put her down," Miriam said, but she didn't move. Just stood there holding Colin's daughter like she was precious, like she was worth every risk. "Miriam, yes. I'm glad you stayed." She turned to him. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Happy ones this time. So am I." They stood together as the lamp burned and the fire crackled and the children slept safe. Two broken people who'd found wholeness not in being fixed, but in being willing to stay broken together. The prayer had been answered, not with the easy miracle Colin had hoped for, but with something better, something real, human hands to help, human heart to share the burden, human love offered freely between wounded souls. Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes that was everything. Outside, night deepened. Inside, light held steady. And in that small cabin on the frontier, a new family began to grow, born not from blood alone, but from choice, from courage, from two people brave enough to try again. The lamp burned bright. Winter's end was coming, and with it, the promise of spring.